Is God good? Do you really believe that? Let's give him a hand of praise if he's really that good. He's that good. Your church is very active. We've been out and about just yesterday morning. Lisa and her gang, she has a gang. You know, she's a gang member, gang leader. She's a gang leader. And her gang went out there in the street at the Hope Coach and just did what God had them do. So thank you so much for all those that have joined her. Lisa, it's a great work that you're doing. It's a great work. Keep it up. And if you want to know more about it or be involved, contact Lisa. And she's really involved, not just part of it, but she's really become part of the organization, which is really tremendous. And last week, as you know, some of us were not here because we were on our mission in Mexico. That was a wonderful and great experience. So for all those that went, thank you. Because if you haven't had the opportunity to go, it's really something that you should do. Make the time. Make the time. You will be blessed by it, and you will be a blessing. So it's worth it for us to go and experience that, to be able to learn and know that there's a difference that you can make. And God is doing it with our little, humble church that we have today. In the new series I'm starting today, the biggest lies we tell ourselves. Oh, this might hurt. Wear your steel-toes boots on these. I'm going to step on some toes. It's going to feel personal, but I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about lies we tell ourselves. It's going to happen. Some people say, well, I don't lie. Well, you just told another one. See, they just told you one right there, because we all go through that phase where we opt to believe the lie rather than the truth. And today I'm talking about, more specifically, the first lie is maybe it will just go away. We've been there. The elephant in the room. Maybe if we're quiet enough, if we don't say anything, if we sit still, if you suffer long enough, maybe it would just go away. One of the biggest lies we can ever tell ourselves. While it is true that time will heal wounds, it's prudent that if you stay in a situation that's painful or abusive or dangerous, you have two options: get out or get help. But sometimes we think that if we just stay there long enough, if you suffer long enough, if I endure this long enough, then maybe somehow this would just go away. One of our biggest lies, and I want to go right to it. First of all, what is it? Because we want it to go away. What is it that we're hoping that somehow will just disappear? We will never conquer what we're not willing to confront. And we'll never confront what we do not identify. So in trying to figure out what this is that we're hoping to go away, we have to know what is it. What is this very thing that we're dealing with? What's causing this stressful reaction? Because the thing that we want to go away is how it makes us feel. Zig Ziglar, a motivational speaker, talked about a woman who came to him and says, you know, I hate my job. I don't know what you can do about it, but I hate my job. And he thought about it. He says, you know, there must be something that you like. She says, no, the job is at the point where it's causing me to be physically ill to have to show up every day. He says, there must be something that you like about your job. She says, I can't think of anything. So he had her to take a piece of paper and start to jot down some things. He says, first of all, do they pay you at your job? She says, yes, I get paid. He says, and that's good, right? She says, yes, you write that down. He gets paid. And not only did she get paid, but she was compensated very well for what she does. He said, do you have benefits? She says, yes, we get vacation. I have profit sharing. I have 401k. She's jotting these things down. And he says, well, how far? Do you have to go long ways to get to work commuting-wise? She says, no, I live very close to work. Write that down. And she found out that she was good at her job. She was very appreciated. She had gotten awards for the work that she did. She had friends at work. And when she really stopped to look at it, she found out it was not her job. And sometimes we can identify a source of irritation or problem, and we find out later that really was not the problem. So we have to know, what is it that we're hoping will go away? One way you discover this sometimes in healthcare is called rotational elimination. When you have an allergy, if you have an allergy, sometimes you have to eliminate certain things to kind of evaluate your response. Because some things that you're holding close to you may be the things that you need to separate from because it's causing you the most distress. You may have a gluten sensitivity. And all of a sudden, if you find that you've got joint pain and bloating or you have irritability or sleeplessness or fatigue, you're taking all of these drugs to treat all of these symptoms, but really that's not it. If you find that you could just eliminate gluten and all of this would go away, that's it. But if you can't find out what it is, but just hoping that it will go away, you have to find out what is it. A person may have a problem with obesity. They figure, well, I just need to change my diet. Is that really it? Why do you eat so much? Well, because I'm lonely or because I feel depressed. And why are you lonely? Because I don't have friends. And why don't you have friends? Because nobody likes me. And why don't they like you? Because they say, I don't like you. But why? And if you really get down to it, because you're not a friendly person, why aren't you friendly? And you have to get down to it. But if you just change your diet, that's not it. You have to go deeper when you're trying to find out the root of a situation. Because it's easy to identify something, and if you can work on that for a long time, you can treat the symptoms, but it's not the cause. To really effectively treat and find out how to get rid of it, you have to first identify what it is. Doctors don't know everything, in case you didn't know that, right? Doctors don't know everything. You can go to your doctor and they can identify something and they'll treat something and say, well, that's not working. Well, let me change this for it. And they'll change things and they'll treat something differently. They don't know everything. And when they don't know it all, they call it fibromyalgia. Oh, yeah. In healthcare, it's one of the most debatable diagnoses ever. Some doctors say it don't exist, and others say, oh, no, you've got fibromyalgia. Let me write this out. And you're chasing the symptom, but you're never identifying what it is. I just want it to go away. The next thing we have to identify beyond what it is, we have to identify where it is. That's our next challenge. Where is it? See, we are a tripartite being. We are a body, we possess a soul, and we have a spirit. 3 parts. And we always tend to treat the physical symptoms. We always believe that everything has a physical problem because of its presentation. So when something presents physically, we think it's a physical problem. But every physical symptom does not mean you have a physical situation. Sometimes there's a problem within your soul. They found, even scientifically, that people that have deep-seated anger issues and unforgiveness and fear and guilt and pride will manifest in physical symptoms. And though you can treat these physical symptoms, you're not addressing and approaching the problem, because the problem is not always where the symptoms are. You ever notice you step on a dog's tail over here, he barks way over here on the other end? Sometimes your problem is so far away from your symptom, and you keep trying to muzzle your symptom, but you find out until you can really treat the source of the problem, you still are going to have issues. There was a pastor friend of mine that I was speaking to. He was an associate pastor. He is one at a church, and God had given him the call to become a pastor, to start and lead a church. And he had been praying on this for quite some time. And the Bible says that God will give you signs and wonders to confirm. If you have questions about whether God's direction, he'll give you signs and wonders. So as he's pondering whether God really wants him to start this church, someone came to him and says, Pastor, God has put on my heart to give you, and he gave him a large amount of money as seed to start your church. Now that means that one great issue is over. He's got enough money to really get this started. That's exciting. So he goes back in prayer a little bit longer. He's continuing to pray on this and believing to God for this. And then someone else comes and says, you know, Pastor, I work at a church over here. I'm part of a youth ministry, but God's told me to quit that and come over here and be part of your group to get you started. So everything is lining up. Isn't God good? Everything is lining up. But here's what he says. When I talk to him, he says, Pastor, this has been the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. He says, I wake up at night and I have sleepless nights. He says, I have headaches, anxiety. There is such fear inside of me. He says, I went to the doctor, and the doctor prescribed antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. He says, I just don't know. He said, this has been one of the most challenging. Now, does he have a physical condition? We know it's not. But if you treat symptoms that are of the soul and spirit and you try to treat them physically, you'll never get the response. See, God's already given him the validation. By faith, you start walking now. Will there be issues? Of course. Is there going to be setbacks and disappointments? Of course there will be. But when you're walking with God, every step you take is a step of faith. And the battle is not yours. The battle you're facing when you're on the path with God is not yours. Every battle, God says you already have the victory. So when you wake up and you face it, you're like, bring it on. You have this attitude because you know, like King David, you know when King David faced Goliath. Let me explain this. David was this little small boy, right? Goliath came out and he's this giant. You know, will anyone come and fight me? And that's what he sounded like. You know, anyone come. And everybody was just afraid of this giant. And, you know, and then David saw him, just a boy. He says, who is this Philistine, uncircumcised, that's going to defy the armies of God? He says, if no one will fight him, I'll fight him. Can you imagine a little bitty boy? Like, get out of here. Get out of here. And he kept saying, I'll fight him. And then he said, I'll cut off your head. David's just talking trash. I'll cut off your head and I'll stand on your chest. And, you know, I'm like, wow. And then finally he convinces the king. He says that when I was guarding my father's sheep, a bear attacked. And then a lion attacked. And I went after them and took the sheep and killed the lion and killed the bear. And it's just as God gave me victory over the lion and the bear, he'll give me victory over this uncircumcised Philistine. You got to see what God has already brought you through. So when you face a situation, don't look forward, stop looking back and realize that God has brought you through your greatest battle already. And the battles are not going to stop. You got to become more confident in your ability with God. As you know, they tried to strap armor on David, gave him a sword, the king's sword, and a shield, and all this spear, and he's trying to run. This little boy run out there with all of this stuff. He says, I can't fight with this. This has not been proven. But you're going up against a giant. You need giant weapons to go up against giants. But when you've got God, when you've got you and God is a majority. And they say, what are you going to use? He says, give me 5 stones, smooth stone. And he put them in his shepherd's bag. Now here's what you did not know. He only needed 1 stone. What the other 4 was for, because Goliath had 4 brothers. And just in case the other brothers, I had 1 for everybody. So he began to run after him. And Goliath says, you bring me, I'm our dog. You know, he's on it. And Goliath did, and he threw. And no matter what direction he could have thrown it east, and it would have turned and gone west because God is in it. God is in it. My point is that when God's already given you the victory, you have no reason to have fear and anxiety. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Even though we know this, we get the A on paper, but we've got to stand there and face the giant. We've got to face the issue. We've got to face the situation. It's difficult to remember who we are. You got to know where you are. You got to know whose you are. You got to know that God has said you're more than a conqueror. Not just a conqueror, you're more than a conqueror. So when you face a situation, God already knows the situation before you. You can pray to God about it. God's like, I already know. You already got the victory. And sometimes we still want God to fight the battle for us. If God would remove all of your issues, you would not know what God would be able to do with you. I think it was Andre Crouch who said, God, thank you for the valleys. Thank you for the mountains. Thank you for the storms you brought me through. Because if I never had a problem, I'd never know that you could solve them and what faith in your word can do. Through it all, we keep trusting in him. Is that right? Through it all. Give God a round of praise. We keep trusting in him. So no matter how much the pastor could have fear and doubt and anxiety, it was not the enemy. At some point, you've got to face this enemy and realize that God has already given you. You don't need another drug. You don't need another something to fight your physical symptoms. The physical way is how your body manifests other problems. Weariness of your soul and spirit will manifest in your physical person. You got to recognize if it's a spiritual issue, you got to fight that spiritual battle with spiritual weaponry. If you got an issue in your soul, you got to know how to confront that issue, and you can't confront them all medically. You can only go further. And in fact, the guy said that the medications were making him worse. He says, I got more anxiety, more fear. He got to get all. Now he has to wean himself off of this when it was never what he should have had in the first place. You've got to know where your enemy is. And then it talks about the peace of God. That's what we sometimes are struggling with. We just don't have that peace. This other person was telling me about their testimony. He says that he was a professional athlete and doing very well, making lots of money. Life was going well. He was at the top of his game. And he says that he just had an emptiness. And he don't know what it was. He had bought everything he could have, all the cars and all the money he could buy. And he was just trying to seek the thrill and trying to find out how to ease the storm. He said there was still an emptiness. There was something. He tried to drink it away, and he tried all other kind of ways with drugs, and it kept getting deeper. He says he even started, for whatever reason, started selling drugs and dealing drugs. Though he had all the success that he wanted, he just kept trying to find a way for him to calm the storm. And he says as a result of his lifestyle and the people that he was associated with, he ended up in prison. Everything was lost. He's now at the lowest point of his life, and he still doesn't have peace. He considered taking his own life. And in prison, someone told him about Jesus. And he says, I've never believed in God. I never believed in that. But he thought at this desperate moment, anything is worth a try. He says, God, if you are real, give me just 5 minutes of peace. It says immediately, he had a peace, he says, that was greater than any drug he's ever had. He said, tears in his eyes. He says, God is real. He started to realize that there's no greater peace than knowing God and having him in his life. He said, God gave him such a peace that he says he knew what was missing all of his life. That could not be filled with money and personal things and belongings and possessions. It was what was missing was more of God. Only God can give you that perfect peace. And he found himself out shortly after out of prison, and he started to serve God with all of his heart. He says, nothing else matters. It's just the peace of God is greater than anything else. You pass on your way here, and we pass through areas in Paradise Valley. We see these beautiful homes, but I wonder, is there peace? Because some of these homes have maybe one person to live there or two people, or maybe it's a summer home or a winter home, and nobody lives there, but the home is empty, a place that's no peace. Whenever there's emptiness in your life, you have to say what you need sometimes is peace, not people. Don't fulfill it with belongings or possessions. Sometimes you need to fill it with peace. There was a guy that had 3 sons, and he had great wealth. And he had a warehouse. He says, I want you to fill this warehouse as inexpensively as you can. And I want you to try and make it as full as possible. And the one that can fill it the most and spend the least amount of money, I'll give them my wealth. Well, the first son thought, what's the cheapest thing out there? He went and got dirt. And he filled the warehouse with dirt. And it was only cost some negligible amount. And he gave it to his father. The next one thought, sand. I can find a real discount on sand. He filled it with sand and submitted it to his father. And the next one came in, and he put a candle in the middle of the room, and he lit it. And he filled the room with light. That's what we've got to learn how to do. When there's darkness, what you need to fill it with light. Sometimes when something is missing, you got to add more light to the situation. It's dark enough. Adding more darkness and trying to dig deeper does not get you out. You have to know where it is before you can try to get rid of it. Let's look at Matthew chapter number 11 and verse number 28 through verse number 30. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. When the soul is weary, you cannot treat that with anything that's physical. You can try and eat to try and satisfy a weary soul. You can try everything else, but if your soul is weary, he says, come to me and you may find rest. If he's giving us that instruction, the only place that your soul can be satisfied is coming to Jesus, then you can try every way that you want, because you will never get rid of it until you come to him. See, no matter how much we can bargain, we say, I don't believe in, whether you believe something or not does not make it not so. You were created a certain way. You have a mind, you have a soul, and you have a spirit. And until you learn how to nourish and satisfy the cravings of each one of those, you can be very deficit in one area and having symptoms in another part. And you think that it's your physical. I got to do more of this. No, what you're missing sometimes, you're depriving the soul and spirit. Anybody meditate? You may find that if you learn how to meditate, sometimes that can just bring you to a certain level of peace. Certain music can do that to you. Those things are nourishing your soul. Unless you learn how to find your center and get the nourishment that you need, you're always going to be struggling because you won't have peace. You get up sometime in the middle of the night and you're just awake, can't sleep. It's your spirit and your soul. It's not the hunger that you think, you don't need another sandwich. Don't go and make a sandwich. You don't need another sandwich. Sometimes you want to eat. No, don't turn off the TV. It's not like you need to watch something. It's your spirit and soul is crying out to you. There's a thirst that's there that can only be quenched in one way. But you've got to recognize what's missing. I just want it to go away. I just want it to go away. But first, you have to know what it is. And then you have to know where it is. Is it in your mind? Is it in your soul? Is it within your body? The most difficult thing for us sometimes is to look within, isn't it? See, it's easy to go to the doctor and say, doctor, you tell me what it is, I'll do whatever you tell me. But the doctor doesn't live within you. Sometimes you have to look within and you have to learn how to diagnose yourself. You know you better. And you go and you want someone else to be responsible. Tell me what to do. You know, I'll do what you tell me to do. But deep down, we have to learn how to know what we need. We know what's missing, what's lacking. Sometimes we have too much pride to want to do the things that we know we should do. We just want it to go away. I just want to stop arguing. I just want to argue. I don't want to argue anymore. I just don't want any more drama, right? We always just want it to go away. But we never want to stop and identify what it is and where it is. If you could find the source of that, if you could take care of the source of it, the problems go away by themselves. You don't become symptom focused. Don't ever become symptom focused always. I want the symptom to go away. Because the symptom is working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. The symptom is only alerting you of a greater problem. So just to close out the symptoms means you're no longer aware and are getting no kind of understanding or signal that there's a problem or how bad it is. Pray that God gives you symptoms. And let those symptoms guide you to the solution. As you solve the real issue, the symptoms will start taking care of themselves. Don't simply want to negate the pain, to get rid of the issue so you don't want to see it and hear it anymore. It doesn't go away just because you decide to not want to talk about it. I don't know if you figured that out. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Right? You've done that before, right? That's the trump card. Boom, I don't want to talk about it anymore. That means it's over. No, it's not over, right? Just because you don't want to talk about it doesn't mean the problem just kind of says, okay, we'll leave. We'll leave because you don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay, we didn't know. No. It's going to come up again, isn't it? And sometimes in the worst times, you've got to confront it. But you've got to identify what it is. Otherwise, you'll think it's just that person. You think it's you. You're my problem. No, it's not. It's not. You can identify a person. Yeah, if I could just get rid of him and her and this person in the cubicle next to me, if I can get rid of them. no. If you would manage to go across town and you find they would show up right there. Where'd you come from? Same kind of person keeps showing up because it's not where you live, it's what's living in you. Right? A guy goes into this town and asks someone, says, hey, what's this town like? He says, what's the town like where you're from? He said, where I'm from is a bunch of backwoods people. They're negative, they complain, cynical, and I'm so glad to get away from them. He says, you know something? You're going to find the same thing here. And then another guy comes up and he says, hey, what's this town like? He says, what's the town like where you're from? He says, loving people, kind and gentle. They means a lot to me, and I hate to leave them. And I was just wondering what this town was like. He says, don't worry, son, you're going to find the same thing here. And the person next to him says, you told both people different, why did you tell them? He says, because everyone carries within them their own environment. You will recreate where you're going what you are right now. If you have a problem right now with where you are, wherever you go, you're going to have a problem with where you're going. See, if I work out and I go to a new place, within a matter of weeks, I'll tell you where every gym is in the neighborhood. If you're a church goer, you know where every church is. If you're a crack addict, you know where every crack house is around there. Yeah, there's one down the street, there's one over here. Because you'll find your environment, you'll recreate the same situation, good or bad, because your environment is not where you live, your environment is what lives in you. Lastly, and maybe we'll go away, is where is it going? Where is it going? Isaiah chapter 26 and verse number 3. Where is it going? Back to the position of peace. This is God speaking. You will keep him in perfect peace. This is God's promise. He will keep you in perfect peace. You know there's a difference between peace and perfect peace, isn't there? If you're going to have something, try and make it the best that it can be. And if you want peace, you would want perfect peace. That's what I would think. You don't want just peace. I want perfect peace. Nothing lacking. The way you get that, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Where's your mindset? Your mindset will determine where your peace comes from. What you focus on, you think about. What you think about, you bring about. If your mind's on the Prince of Peace and on things that are of peace, it will bring peace. I have a challenge I'm setting for myself this week. I'm going to ask Ali and some of my kids to help me. I want to download all of their music as much as I can. I want to hear the music with all the vulgar rhymes. I want to hear it all. I want to hear what they listen to right now for 1 week. For 1 week, I want to listen to nothing but that music that they listen to. And I pass by, sometimes when I'm passing by, you stop, stoplight, and somebody's up there playing that music, and you and you're talking. I'm like, what is up my window? But this week, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Because how can you criticize what you don't know about? How do you know what someone else's world is like unless you walk in their shoes? I know what I like, and I know what I listen to. I know how it nourishes me, but I want to hear it. I want to hear the songs. I want to hear the lyrics. I'm all week. So next week, if you hear a cursing sermon, pray for me. I'm going in. I'm going in. I'm going to the dark side this week. But how can you criticize someone if you haven't walked a mile in their shoes? So this is something we tend to want to just stay away, and it's easy to just stay away and associate with just people that we like. But to understand somebody, you got to understand their life and their world. When in the 70s and the 80s, when I grew up, they had groups, the Four Tops, the Temptations, and all those groups back there, the Motown sound, and my mother would say, "Why y'all playing that filth?" So anyway, we wanted to hear, Parliament, Commodores, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah, anyway, okay, I'm back. Yeah. But now we're facing a different generation. And just as they didn't understand our generation, now we're dealing with a new generation, and we need to understand what is that they're dealing with. But I'll keep you in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. And if your mind is not set right, then whatever your mind is set on will determine your direction and your focus. It'll determine your day to a great extent. What you make up your mind in the morning to be will determine what your day can be like. If you make up your mind this is going to be an awesome day, if you make up your mind that this is going to be just amazing things, God has great things in store, just make up your mind that this is going to be, you'd be amazed how things will start to shape up the way that your mind is set. Don't leave it up to happenstance. What's your day like? I don't know, we'll see. No, you set it. You call it. You speak it. You can wake up and say, good morning, God. A good God morning. Same words. It's just what you say. Same words. It's how you arrange your mind, and how it comes out determines what you say. Remember, you don't have what you see, you have what you say sometimes. You've spoken your day. You talk to somebody, it could be a great morning, about 8 o'clock. How is it? It's all right. It went from great to all right in just a matter of a few hours. It's mindset. John 14 and verse 27, again on peace, he says, peace I leave with you. Then he says, my peace. This is Jesus, my peace. Not the world's peace. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. We want the peace of God. And lastly, where is it going? You want it to go away, but where does it go? Where does it go when you want it to go away? Sometimes when things are dormant, you think, finally, a peace, a moment of peace. Where did it go? Because when you think things just went away, sometimes they're staging a counterattack. You ever have somebody have something go into remission, and they're just breathing easily for a moment? And if they go back to the old ways and don't try and continue to resolve beyond the remission, it comes back. And sometimes it comes back and it's more ferocious and it's worse than it was the first time. When you just want it to go away, where is it going? If you don't resolve the situation, it may be you may have a moment of dormancy and you think, oh, it's gone. No. If you've not resolved it, if you've not really taken care of it, eliminated it, it's just dormant. You may have asked yourself at some point, how did I end up here? Whatever you may be, you ask, why? I never thought I'd end up here. You didn't plan this for your life, but you ended up at this place. And now you're questioning, what went wrong? See, there are gauges in your car. When you drive, there are gauges. It tells you how fast you're going, oil pressure. There's even a gas gauge. But if I ask for a show of hands, which I'm not, I'll ask you, how many of you ran out of gas? Some of you would go, because despite, a couple of times, despite the gauges, just telling you exactly where you are, we ignore them sometimes. And even with our gas gauge, there's what's called an idiot light. I don't know if you ever heard about the idiot light. It comes on too, like big bright light. And some even have cars that will talk to you. Hey man, you need gas. Despite all of that, we still end up here. And it's frustrating because we want to blame somebody. I just want it to go away. It makes us angry. We can become bitter and resentful because we thought we've endured this long enough. I think about the cross. And when Jesus got there, the Bible says that he could have called on 10 legions of angels to bring him down. But he didn't say, how did I end up here? He knew exactly why he was there. Because he looked beyond the cross. You see, beyond your suffering, beyond your situation, there's a greater glory. If you could endure this and give God the glory. Sometimes you want it to go away, but sometimes you say, no, I want it here right now because I want to see God's glory. God, I want your glory to come in this right now. You don't know that sometimes in the illness, God gets glory. When God brings you through something there's a greater glory. There's a renewed purpose. Don't keep lying to yourself and just want an ease of life. You find that to have a life that you want, you're going to have a life that's easy, but there's going to be complications and stresses and difficulty along the way, but you're going to be thanking God just as much for the hard times as you are for the good times. Because they all went into shaping your life and making you the more perfect person that God wants you to be. Thank you, God. Rather than just always wanting it to go away, God, help me to ride and navigate through this. Ultimately, you want to give him glory. Ultimately, you want God to be satisfied, that when you go through it, he can say, well done. Because we're going to get through it. Do you know we're going to get through it? But the question is, how do we make it through? Do we go through or do we really grow through? Because ultimately, we want to grow closer to him. Amen? Thank you, Jesus.